Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our new School Finance Cash Advance User Interface Overview. I'm Chelsea Jemison, and I'm the Fiscal Operations Lead, and I'll be presenting to you today. Today, we will be going over the updated Cash Advance request process, including the new user interface. LEAs will log into the UI to submit the request. Requests are completed electronically, and the status can be tracked within the UI. We'll also go over the changes to the collected information and format. The cash flow analysis is partially populated with amounts for state aid, classroom site fund, and additional state aid. So these items the LEA will not need to enter. Additional state aid and classroom site fund are now considered in both the revenue and expenditure portions of the cash flow analysis. We also divided June into two columns for revenue and expenditures to reflect your June 1 and June 30 payments. Finally, we will be comparing the entered expenditures to your most recently submitted expenditure budget. Before you are able to initiate a cash advance request, please contact your entity administrator to grant access to the School Finance Payment Systems Cash Advance User role. Your district entity admin will log into the provided URL, search for the user, then search for the role Payment Systems Cash Advance User and assign it to the user. We have linked some helpful user role videos. After the role is assigned, navigate to the School Finance Systems homepage with the provided URL. Under Applications, select Payment Systems. On the School Finance Systems menu, click Cash Advance. On the Cash Advance Request page, click New Request. If your LEA has submitted a request and it was rejected with the option to resubmit, you can copy the most recent submission and amend the data to resubmit. But please note that the attachments to your request will be copied over. So if the rejection was due to an attachment, you will want to submit a new request. For example, if your board member forgot to sign your cash advance request letter and you attached it to your previous request and the request was rejected due to this attachment, this is not a good option. You would rather click New Request. But if the request was rejected because an M&O expenditure entry was not quite right, copy from previous request is a good option because it copies over the data. You can amend that one piece of information and then resubmit for consideration. After clicking New Request, this is the cash flow analysis screen. Teal fields are actuals and have been distributed, so depending on where we are in the fiscal year when your LEA goes to submit a request, these will be populated. Blue fields are projections based on the teal field actuals, so teal and blue fields are system populated and you do not need to enter these. White fields are to be completed by the LEA. Gray fields are calculated, and you can see new rows and new columns added. Classroom, site fund, and additional state aid are now included in both revenues and expenditures, and we have a new line for M&O monthly percentage. As the LEA enters their M&O monthly expenditures, this will calculate the percentage against your M&O total expenditures. You can see the two new columns where June has been split for June 1st and June 30th, and a new column for annual totals which will sum each row. Our final new column is most recent budget. This is going to pull the amounts for Fund 001 M&O and Fund 610 and 620 and Classroom Site Fund from your most recently submitted expenditure budget. So as you enter your monthly expenditures for those amounts, you can see them as compared to what you budgeted. As I mentioned, the teal boxes are actual distributions, so depending on where we are in the fiscal year, when your LEA submits a request, the teal boxes will populate with actual distributions of basic state aid, additional state aid, and classroom site fund. These are not things you need to fill in, but they help determine the amount of advance, if any, the LEA may be awarded. Line 2 for the unadjusted current year basic state aid amount due is from the BSA 64-1, and we will look at that report on the next slide. This is the BSA 64-1, and you can see the annual total matches the amount populated on the cash flow analysis, as do the unadjusted current year basic state aid payment due amounts boxed in red. Line 4 is the additional state aid, and it also comes from the BSA 64-1, which we will look at in the next slide. This is page 2 of the BSA 64-1, and again you can see the total annual matches the amount on the cash flow analysis, and so do the current month payment amounts. Line 5 on the cash flow analysis is Classroom Site Fund, and you can find these populated amounts on the Classroom Site Fund Report 03 or year-to-date summary. Here is the Classroom Site Fund Report 03 or year-to-date summary, and you can see the annual total and current payment match the cash flow analysis. Going back to the cash flow analysis, as I mentioned earlier, the blue are projections for the fiscal year based on the most recent teal or actual fields. So it's going to look at the most recent annual calculation and what has been distributed and project each monthly amount for the remainder of the fiscal year. So again, lines 2 and 4 will pull from the BSA 64-1 and line 5 from the Classroom Site Fund Report 03. Looking back at the BSA 64-1, you can see the net basic state aid matches the annual total on the cash flow analysis and the projections total to that same sum. Same thing for the net additional state aid, matches the total on the cash flow analysis and the projections sum to the same value. And once again, the CSF annual total matches the cash flow analysis and the projections add up as well. That covers the system populated figures and where they come from. Let's look at what the LEA is actually going to be inputting in the cash flow analysis. The white fields are what you need to fill in. Line 3 is the State Equalization Assistance Property Tax Levy, formerly known as County Equalization. You can get this annual total from the BSA 59-1. Now, depending on how your LEA receives this, you may enter different amounts monthly or a portion in the November-December time frame and the rest in the May and June time frame. It just depends on how you receive this, but as long as the total matches the total on the BSA 59-1, this is fine. Here is our example BSA 59-1, and you can see the LEA has an annual amount of $9,058,639.75. Again, it does not matter how you allocate it as long as the total matches the number on your 59-1 and your cash flow analysis. Back to the cash flow analysis and the white cells. The LEA will fill these in. One note, lines 9 and 15 for additional funds is meant to include Prop 123. So make sure you go to Hot Topics on the School Finance website to find the amount distributed to your LEA. Something else I want to point out, you will want to make sure that you hit the Save button every few minutes to save your progress as you fill out your revenue and expenditure information. The system will time out, and I don't have the exact timing, so every few minutes, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, make sure you hit that button so you don't lose your progress. Once you are finished with your revenue and expenditures, there are a few required questions underneath the cash flow analysis. The first one is your requested cash advance amount. Then please pay attention to number 21. This is different than the old cash flow analysis. This is asking if you are only requesting an advance so you can claim your registered warrant expenses. If you mark yes, this will end the process and record your request so you are eligible to claim your registered warrant expenses, but it will not submit your request to be considered for an actual cash advance distribution. I repeat, marking yes will end the process and will not consider you for an actual cash advance. Under the required questions are required attachments. These have not changed from the previous process. A PDF of the meeting minutes or resolution where your board approved the request for a cash advance is required, and we are also requiring a PDF of the signed cash advance letter. After attaching those, you will hit Submit, then a pop-up will appear and you will click OK. Please note, after hitting Submit, you cannot edit this request. After you have submitted a request, you can view it and track the status by going to the same place you went to submit the request. You will now see it listed there. To view the request, click View. This will pull up your completed cash flow analysis. If you wish to generate a PDF, click the Download Cash Flow Analysis Report button in the top right corner of the page. Here's the PDF that will download. This is page 1. And here is page 2 of the downloaded PDF version of the cash flow analysis that LEA has submitted. You can also track the status of your submission, and as it moves through the approval process within school finance and to the state treasurer and finally to ADOA, the status will update. The final approval status is approved by Director of ADOA, and once it's been approved, the amount awarded will appear here. This is a clickable link and will open up to the approved distribution schedule. This is exportable. I wanted to show a copy of the BSA 64-1 with the approved cash advance distributions included. You can see in the description column where it shows cash advance adjustment for fiscal year 2021, then the allocation in the cash advance column, and finally the column for the year-to-date basic state aid paid percentage with cash advance. This is to show that we are not distributing more than 75% prior to May per statute. Because April is the last opportunity for an advance, requests must be submitted by early February to allow for processing. The only exception is if you're only requesting in order to be eligible to claim for registered warrant expenses. We will accept those requests all fiscal year. This concludes our presentation on the new cash advance process and UI. As always, reach out to us by phone or email with any questions or concerns. Please also stay up to date with our hot topics and memos for important information. Thank you.